Welcome to the Season 3 recap of The Handmaid's Tale. After a harsh journey, Emily escapes Goliath with June's baby Nicole into Canada, where they are granted asylum and Nicole is taken into the care of Luke and Moira. Back in Goliath, June asks Commander Lawrence to take her to Hannah before being recaptured by the Guardians and returned to the Waterfords. In order to protect himself and Serena from her involvement in Nicole's kidnapping, Fred publicly pins the blame on Emily, but privately, Serena defiantly tells him that she was the one who sent Nicole away. Then she tries to die by suicide by burning down the house, but is soon rescued by June. After being punished at the Red Center, June is reassigned to Commander Lawrence. At the Lawrence household, June joins an underground resistance cell consisting of the Marthas, Beth and Cora. They are hiding a fugitive Martha named Ellison, a former chemistry teacher who joined the Mayday resistance in order to make bombs to destroy the Goliath ruling government. It is also revealed that she made the bomb that blew up the new Rachel and Leah Center. June and Beth help Ellison escape. However, Ellison's escape attempt fails and she later returns to the Lawrence household with another wounded Martha, who was shot by Guardians. Commander Lawrence's wife, Eleanor, helps June and the Marthas hide the wounded woman. Commander Lawrence dismisses Cora for lying, while June buries the Martha and Eleanor plants flowers over the grave. In Canada, Emily is staying with Luke, Moira and Erin, and after some hesitation is convinced by Moira to re-establish contact with her wife Sylvia. The commanders meet at Commander Lawrence's house to discuss the fighting in Chicago, including an incoming shipment of female captives. Commander Lawrence conscripts June to select 5 Chicago women to serve as Marthas. June eventually chooses 5 Marthas who would make good recruits for her resistance cell: an engineer, an IT technician, a journalist, a lawyer, and a thief. Meanwhile, a despondent Serena goes to stay with her mother, Pamela. Later, Serena tries to kill herself via drowning in the ocean, but changes her mind at the last minute. June and some other handmaids attend a reception at the Putnam household. June learns that Matthew has given birth to 3 babies. Serena tells June that Hannah is at a school in Brooklyn. June and the Waterfords later receive video footage of Nicole with Luke in Canada. Emily finally reunites with her wife Sylvia and their son Oliver, and Luke and Moira ask a Christian priest to baptize Nicole, which they do in a church. In exchange for a favor from Serena, June agrees to phone her husband Luke in order to arrange a meeting between the Waterfords and Nicole. During the tense meeting at Toronto Pearson International Airport, Serena reassures Luke that June is safe and that both she and June gave up Nicole to give Nicole a better life in Canada. Serena passes Luke a locket for Nicole as well as a cassette tape she smuggled out of Goliath, containing a recorded message from June, revealing the name she gave to Nicole, Holly, and the baby's biological father, Nick. The Waterfords, June, Rita, and Aunt Lydia travel to Washington, D.C. to stay with the family of High Commander George Winslow. There, they meet with a delegation of Swiss diplomats who are seeking to negotiate between Goliath and Canada and prepare to take part in internationally broadcast mass prayers being held at the former Washington Monument, asking for the return of baby Nicole from Canada. June reunites with Nick, who as a commander is now prepping military forces for the Chicago front line against the rebels. Serena tells June that Nick was a soldier in the crusade, implying that he was directly involved in the attacks on the White House and Congress. Afterwards, the Waterfords force June to lead thousands of handmaids marched along what used to be in the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool in a televised prayer for Nicole's return. Emily later befriends Moira and the two join a group of protesters who confront the Canadian immigration minister over his negotiations with Goliath, and they are arrested. Fred and Serena renew their love for each other while negotiations take place to secure Nicole's return and an extradition treaty with Canada. June convinces Eleanor to accompany her on a visit to Brooklyn, but the two are not permitted into the school. Afterwards, June participates in a persecution where Francis and several others are hanged for endangering a sacred child. June realizes that Matthew was spying on her and reported Francis to Aunt Lydia. June furiously attacks Matthew but is restrained by Alma and Brianna. June is singled out for being responsible for the death of Francis, which will negatively affect Hannah. In the night, handmaid of Andy gives birth to a stillborn girl. of Matthew snaps when she is with June at the grocery store and, after ferociously beating Janine, grabs a gun from the Guardian and prepares to shoot Aunt Lydia before another Guardian shoots her. When June asks Commander Lawrence about the whereabouts of Hannah and her family, he informs her that he does not know where they are relocated. Natalie is rendered brain dead after the shooting and is placed on life support until her baby is born. As punishment for her role in engineering Natalie's humiliation and death, June is kept in the hospital room, praying on her knees all day for weeks under Aunt Lydia's orders. June makes two mercy-killing attempts on Natalie, but is stopped by Janine, who tells her that Natalie is one of them. June attacks Serena when she visits the hospital and suffers cuts to her hand. A sympathetic doctor stitches June's wounds, complimenting her for her bravery, and June finds out he knew her mother. As Natalie's condition deteriorates, the doctors are forced to deliver her premature son. After the baby has been delivered, June is allowed to leave, but gets permission from Aunt Lydia to remain with Natalie in her final moments. June apologizes to the brain-dead Natalie for losing her way and tells her that her son is a fighter. High Commander Winslow visits Boston, where he revealed plans of importing handmaids currently implemented in Washington, D.C. to other districts, starting with Boston. Fred arranges Winslow, Serena, and Aunt Lydia to witness Commander Lawrence's next ceremony with June in order to out Lawrence's refusal to bed his handmaids and eliminate him as a protector of June. June convinces Lawrence and Eleanor to go through the ceremony, citing the fact that Fred would kill not just Lawrence and his wife, but also their entire household. After the doctor checks June to confirm that the ceremony was successful, June informs Lawrence of her plans to smuggle children out of Goliad and offers to have Lawrence take credit for the rescue. June saves Lawrence after Eleanor points a gun at him, and in return she asks Lawrence to help her smuggle children out of Goliad. Lawrence tries to escape the country with Eleanor but is unable to cross checkpoints, so he returns home. A group of Marthas meet with June and agree to help her with her plan. June travels with Lawrence to the brothel to meet Billy and afterwards encounters Winslow, who attempts to rape her. June attacks and kills Winslow. Afterwards, a Martha helps June escape, and she reveals to June that she was one of the 5 women from Chicago that June had saved from the colony. The Marthas working at the brothel clean the room and cremate Winslow's body. Meanwhile, the Waterfords travel to meet with Mark in order to expedite Nicole's return. They stop at their friend's house where they dine with their family. When the Waterfords drive to meet Mark, he, unbeknownst to Fred, leads them to Canada where the Canadian Army arrests them for war crimes. Beth informs June that the plan to get the children out of Goliad is underway, with an aeroplane being expected to arrive in 1 week. In Canada, the Waterfords spend time in a detention facility, and while Fred worries for Serena's safety, she reveals to him that she was involved in their capture, in order that she might get to spend time with Nicole. Luke and Moira meet with Fred and Serena respectively, and Serena is allowed to spend time with Nicole. Eleanor almost spills news of June's plan to Olivia and Naomi when they come to visit the house to pray for the safety of Commander Winslow, who officials believe has been kidnapped. June later goes to deliver food and drinks with Eleanor, but sees that she has been overdosed on medication to try to kill herself. Eleanor is groggy but still breathing, but ultimately June decides not to help her and quietly leaves. Eleanor is found dead the next morning by Sienna. A funeral service for Eleanor is later held. While the preparations to get children out of Goliad are underway, Maggie brings a child, Kiki, to the Lawrence household in daylight. Maggie later changes her mind and threatens to leave with Kiki, but June stops her with a gun. Maggie escapes and is caught on her way back, causing Goliad to patrol the region. More children than originally planned arrive at the Lawrence household, and when Janine informs June that soldiers are checking every house, they all start heading to the airport. In Canada, Fred informs Mark of the crimes Serena is responsible for, and she is detained after previously having been given freedom to roam the city and spend time with Nicole. At the airport, June, along with other handmaids and Marthas, throws stones at 2 Guardian soldiers in order to allow Rita and the children to board the airplane. Luke, Moira, and Emily are all volunteering at the airport in Canada, where Kiki is reunited with her father, and Rita informs Luke that June is responsible for the delivery of the children to safety. In a fight with a soldier, June is shot but later found by some of her fellow handmaids, who carry her out of the woods using her cloak. As she closes her eyes, she recites the prayers.